In this episode...
So, Paul,
go for it.
Today I was hoping we could do Jeffrey Epstein.
Been sexually abused dozens, probably more girls, hundreds of girls. Predator that's operating openly with access to presidents and princes and powerful people for decades.
Right.
That requires an entire system that played blind. Ghislaine Maxwell. Because what's really sick is that there are accounts of her being in the room during the abuse. There are accounts of her participating in the abuse. Do you know that Trump is mentioned in the Epstein files more times than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible?
So, Paul,
go for it.
Today I was hoping we could do Jeffrey Epstein.
We get a lot of requests for him, don't we?
We do. And there's a new Netflix documentary out about him, and I've been watching it, but I don't know a lot about him or the situation, the case, or do you know what I mean? So it's fascinating, really, the whole thing. So,
It is fascinating, but I think we probably do need to say up front that what we will do here, because I do think it matters, that, you know, we need to say that, yes, Epstein sexually abused dozens, probably more girls, hundreds of girls over 20-odd years. And the thing is, most of them were 14, 15, 16 years old. And that's, I think everything that we're going to talk about today, the money, the power, the famous names, whatever, all of that should probably exist to answer one question. How was this allowed?
Right.
How was he allowed to do that for so long in plain sight and with institutional protection? You know, because one predator operating in secret is bad enough, but a predator that's operating openly with access to presidents and princes and powerful people for decades,
right,
that requires an entire system that played blind. So I think we should probably start by maybe, deaf, dumb, blind, all of it. So I think what we should probably do is maybe take a look at who he was, how he built his network, how the abuse was structured, who helped him do it, and then get to why nobody stopped him. So, you know, is there anything specific that you want to hit on?
Like the recruitment side of it, really, because how it actually worked on the ground. Because I think people hear the word trafficking and they sort of imagine something very, very different from what this actually was. You know, Yeah,
and I think we'll get to that. You know, and I think the other person that we actually need to talk about properly is Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell.
I was going to say,
because Ghislaine is the right way to pronounce it. Because she's central to this. I mean, I remember her in the 90s on the King's Road in Chelsea, which I probably shouldn't say, but I mean, I do. So she is central to it.
So, well, okay, good. Because I definitely want to hear about her. So, why don't you just go on and tell us all
so
about it?
let's start with the timeline first, right? So, Epstein himself was born in 1953 in Brooklyn to a working class family.
Right.
His father was a groundskeeper for the Parks Department and his mother worked as a school aide. Now, he's apparently very bright, but he drops out of Cooper Union, which is the school he went to, and drops out of NYU without a degree. So 2 dropouts, right? And then in 1973, he was about 20 years old, he gets hired to teach calculus and physics at the Dalton School. Now, if you don't know, the Dalton School is one of the most elite private schools in Manhattan.
Oh, right.
Now, bear in mind, he's got no teaching qualification.
I'm just
and he's got no degree.
What? He's got no degree, no qualifications, and the best school in Manhattan
right.
is like, come on, babe. like...
But it gets worse.
Yeah, oh my God.
The headmaster at the time was Donald Barr, who's Bill Barr's father. And he hires him. Now, Bill Barr was Trump's Attorney General in his first term.
Ooh.
So, yeah. Barr Senior, obviously, then leaves the following year. So God knows what oversight there was. But the thing is, Epstein is in. So he's teaching the children of some of the wealthiest families in New York.
Right.
And that's the first bit of access he gets.
Right.
So he's there for 3 years, and he gets fired in 1976. Now, officially, he resigns. But multiple sources have said that he was pushed out for inappropriate behavior around students. So we can see that the pattern is already there. And by then, of course, he's made a lot of useful connections, right?
Yeah,
but he's also met the daughter of Ace Greenberg. Now, Ace Greenberg was the CEO of Bear Stearns. And Bear Stearns was big, and still is, big investment banking company.
Right.
So he gets a job there in 1976 as a junior assistant to a floor trader, basically somebody who makes coffee, right?
Okay.
But 4 years later, he's a limited partner. Now,
What?
that's just an absurd trajectory. You don't go from T-boy to partner. You just don't.
In 4 years?
No. But the thing is, he wasn't a trader in any conventional sense. You know, he wasn't managing portfolios the way other people at Bear Stearns were. What he seems to have been doing is cultivating relationships with very wealthy clients, basically making himself a useful aid to rich men.
Right.
So in 1981, he leaves Bear Stearns. Again, there's suggestions that he was pushed out. So he doesn't have a great track record. But anyway, he sets up his own company called J. Epstein & Company. And he registers it in the US Virgin Islands for tax purposes. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. But this is where things get really opaque, because the firm doesn't function like a normal wealth management business. He claims that he only takes clients with $1 billion or more. Now, having worked in the high net worth industry and working with them all of the time, there's a tiny number of billionaires.
I was just about to say, how many billionaires were there at that time? Because there still aren't that many.
50 maybe?
Jesus. So he's...
Maybe a little bit more, but, you know, we're talking not as many as there are now. But anyway, he claims that he's managing their money and providing financial services, but there's virtually no paperwork, there's no transparency, and there's no evidence of what he's actually doing.
Okay.
And his major client, and possibly his only client in the way that he has described it, is Leslie Wexner. Now, Wexner is the founder of L Brands, which owns Victoria's Secret, The Limited, and Bath and Body Works.
Right.
And he's one of the wealthiest men in America. And Epstein doesn't just manage his money, he manages everything, right? So in 1991, Epstein is given power of attorney over Wexner's finances. This is just a ludicrous thing. It just doesn't happen in wealth management that you would give your wealth manager power of attorney over your finances, because that gives you full legal control. It's extraordinary. It's just not normal.
It's such a bad business choice to have all your eggs in one basket. Like, that's just such a bad business decision from somebody who's clearly good at business. Well,
regardless, it's just not a normal client relationship. And then Wexner then starts transferring assets to him. So he starts giving his wealth manager assets, like houses and jets and stuff like that. So in 1996, he transfers the mansion that we all see on the television, with Prince Andrew coming out of it and stuff like that, at 9 East 71st Street. And it's an amazing place. It's actually one of the largest private homes in New York, still is. Right. And it was worth something like $20 million at the time. And he just signs it over to him.
There's something really dodgy going on there.
So dodgy. But then he also transfers a private jet, a Boeing 727.
Hang on, where can I get one of these billionaires? Because, I could do with that.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. You probably have to go island hopping, but we'll get to it. So anyway, he gets this Boeing 727. And then, of course, that's later nicknamed the Lolita Express. Right.
That's disgusting.
Now, the thing is, Wexner later claimed that he was deceived, that Epstein misappropriated funds, that he didn't understand what was happening. I call absolute bullshit on that.
Utter
because
bullshit.
It happened after Epstein had been arrested. So for 2 decades, Wexner gave him access to everything. His money, his property, his social network, even his reputation.
Jesus.
And the thing is, nobody has been able to explain what Epstein did to justify that level of trust. There's no public record of brilliant financial advice anywhere. There's no investment strategy. There's nothing. There's literally nothing. What there is, though, is control and access. Anyway, so by the early 90s, Epstein's presenting as this incredibly wealthy individual. He's got this huge Manhattan townhouse, biggest in New York. He's got an estate in Palm Beach. He's got the island in the US Virgin Islands, Little St. James. He bought that in 1998. And he's got a ranch in New Mexico. He's also got a flat in Paris, and he's got this private plane that was just literally gifted to him. So that sort of lifestyle cost tens of millions of pounds or dollars to maintain, right? A year.
Right.
But there's no visible business generating any of that money. What he does have, though, is connections. And this is where Ghislaine Maxwell enters the picture. So she's the daughter of Robert Maxwell, the British media owner. Now, he owned the Mirror Group newspapers.
Yes.
He also owned the New York Daily News, Pergamon Press, Macmillan Publishers, Berlitz, the company that publishes all of those little travel books, and also has the language, learning that language software, you know, when you...
Duolingo or
No,
Rosetta
not
Stone?
Duolingo. No, Berlitz is a...
Oh, yes, sorry, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yes, yeah.
And so it's a huge media empire.
Yeah.
He's also, well, he was also a Labour MP, and he was almost certainly working for Mossad, Israeli intelligence. So he died in 1991. Apparently, he fell off his yacht.
I mean, that in itself is very...
Do you remember this?
I do.
I mean, we were quite young when this happened, but I still remember it happening.
But I remember it. Yeah, I do. But,
so apparently, I mean, there's a couple of conspiracy theories around. Apparently, he was off the yacht, which wouldn't surprise me. Or he threw himself off it, or he fell. I'm going to go with somebody probably got pissed off with them and them off it.
Well, if you've got fingers in all these little pies and you're giving information here, there, and everywhere.
Well, the thing is,
it's not
the reason I think that he was off it, or maybe that he threw himself off it, was because it turned out that he was actually looting his company's pension funds. So he was helping himself to the pension funds. About £500 million was missing. Now,
caused a huge scandal, didn't
in
it?
the 90s. Huge scandal.
All the pension law got changed as a result, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And
I think
it was tightened and all the rest of it.
Can I just interject and ask one question about if he were to kill himself, throwing himself off a boat seems a fairly uncertain and extended way in which to die, does it not?
Well, it wouldn't be the most pleasant way to do it.
Right. And he does not seem the sort of human that would want to tolerate discomfort.
No. So I imagine he was off the yacht. And rightly so. Because £500 million in people's pension was... But this is the
people's
thing.
lives
it's not
were
just
destroyed by
This is it. But you've destroyed their retirement. So Ghislaine's world completely collapsed. And I remember this because she was lording it around, having loads of money. And then she was broke. So, good. She was horrible anyway. So the family's broke.
Right.
The Maxwell name is completely toxic. So she rocks off to New York to try to rebuild some kind of life for herself. And this is where she meets Epstein, probably in 1991 or so. So the same year that her father dies.
Right, okay, right.
Now, what age were we in 91?
Oh,
15, 16, something like that?
No, I must have been 13.
Anyway.
13-ish.
So anyway,
I think I was a fetus, actually. I don't
Were you? Right, yeah, me too. I was only a twinkle.
Maybe actually I was about 40 and I just look really good now.
This will say that. Anyway, their relationship is massively complicated.
Yeah.
And we don't have full clarity on it, but here's what we do know. We do know that initially it seemed to have been a romantic relationship. They were seen as a couple. But at some point, and it's not clear exactly when, that relationship shifts. So she becomes something more like his partner in the operation, not just his girlfriend, but someone who's managing logistics. So she's recruiting the girls. She's organizing the household. She's facilitating access.
Disgusting.
She's basically a chatelaine. You know, she's running shit. Yeah, when somebody marries into a stately home family, the wife is expected to run everything while the husband fucks around smoking cigars and stuff. But so the thing is, what she brings to the relationship is that she's socially connected in a way that Epstein is not in any way, shape or form. Because you have to remember, she's British upper class. She knows how to move in those circles.
Right. Okay.
And she's got credibility. And she uses that credibility and that knowledge and that social circle to bring people into Epstein's orbit, Prince Andrew being the most obvious example. But of course there are others. But her and Andrew were bosom buddies. You know, they were besties. To the point where she didn't have to sign in when she would go visit Kensington Palace. She would just be waved through, or Buckingham Palace. She would just be waved through.
God. Well, birds of a feather, maybe.
And in fact, she would be such a regular visitor at the palace that if she was stopped by the police, Andrew would call down and scream at them that she shouldn't be stopped. That's how close the relationship was.
Was she shagging him?
Oh, probably.
Okay.
Probably. Maybe they were just friends. Nobody knows. But they were definitely, you know, quite a strong one. They were definitely bosom buddies. But more importantly, she becomes very central to the recruitment process. And this is where the structure of the abuse becomes really clear, because it wasn't Epstein alone approaching girls, teenage girls. It was Maxwell. And she was the one who made it seem safe. Of course she did. You know, she'd approach girls often at Mar-a-Lago, even though Trump we'll get to him in a minute, you know my opinion on him. But, you know, she would approach girls at Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago was basically their hunting ground, their recruitment ground, the spa specifically. She'd also approach girls around Palm Beach, and she would also use other recruiters sometimes, and she'd offer them work. Massage work, usually.
Yes.
And the thing is, it paid well.
Yes.
And she was friendly, even maternal, you know, so she would reassure parents if parents were involved. Because, of course, you know, she'd bring the girls to Epstein. Some of the girls were abused once. Some of them were abused repeatedly over months and years. Some of them were paid to recruit others. So you'd have a 15-year-old who'd been abused by Epstein and Maxwell. And Maxwell would offer her money to bring friends next time. And that's how it scaled. So it became this network. And the thing is, Maxwell wasn't just enabling it. She was managing the whole thing. And what's really sick is that there are accounts of her being in the room during the abuse. There are accounts of her participating in the abuse. There are accounts of her scheduling and coordinating the abuse. So she wasn't passive at all. She was incredibly operational. And during all of this, throughout the 90s and into the 2000s, Epstein's building this public persona, because he's also connected to Bill Clinton. Clinton flew on the plane multiple times, went to the island multiple times, went to the New Mexico route multiple times. Epstein's donating money to the Clinton Foundation.
He likes younger women.
Yeah. He's also really close with Donald Trump. They were best friends for years. Both are on record saying this. Epstein said that he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. Trump, they socialized constantly in Palm Beach in New York. In fact, there's actually footage from 1992 of both of them at a party at Mar-a-Lago. Now, the thing with this party is, this party was all organized and it was arranged and the music was there and the girls were there and it was just the two of them. It was just the two of them and a group of young women.
I feel like I'm just going to spend the whole time going like this and like, oh my God.
So there's these two, laughing. I mean, this footage is all over the place. You can see them laughing and pointing and joking and stuff like that. Now, Trump's on record in 2002 saying Epstein is a terrific guy.
Yes, I've seen that.
And that he's a lot of fun to be with. In fact, it's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. I mean, that's not subtle at all. It's actually disgusting in hindsight.
It's vile.
Actually disgusting in hindsight.
But it's that thing of, how like abusers do things in public because what's so normalised to them in private, they think what they do in public is not that bad. But
it's normal behaviour.
Everybody else is like, the hell? It's
horrified.
That is, oh my God. Sorry.
Now, as Trump is wont to do in these situations, he later claimed that he barely knew him.
Oh, he rewrites all the narratives.
Because he does that with that with everyone. No, I barely knew them. You were f***ing best friends. In fact, he claimed that he'd banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for hitting on a member's daughter. But the timeline doesn't support that at all. They were close for so many years. The thing is, Epstein was still in touch with Trump in Trump's first term in office. So it's bullshit that that Trump had banned him and wasn't talking to him. They were close. The idea that Trump didn't know what Epstein was is just not credible.
Of course.
And then, of course, there's Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew, as he is now.
Yes, Mountbatten Windsor.
He's now Mr. Mountbatten Windsor. I mean, how the mighty have fallen, right? Because he was so invested in his title and the trappings of royalty and all the rest of it that now he's been stripped of everything. But Maxwell introduced him to Epstein in the early 90s, possibly earlier than that, but definitely we know the early 90s. And Andrew became a very regular visitor. He stayed at Epstein's houses. He flew on the plane. He went to the island. There's actually a really famous photograph of Andrew with his arm around Virginia Giuffre, who was 17 at the time, with
I've seen that one.
Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. And that was taken at Maxwell's house in London in 2001, I think it is. So Giuffre said that she was trafficked to Andrew on multiple occasions. Of course, Andrew denies this, but he paid her a settlement. So you can draw your own conclusions. You don't pay somebody millions of pounds because he had to sell a ski chalet in Switzerland to pay for it.
Poor man, how could he cope?
Right.
Sell his ski
so
chalet.
you can draw your own conclusions as to... You don't just say, oh, you've accused me of something, here's, £8 million, keep your mouth shut. Yeah. That's not a thing. But I do suppose, in the interest of clarity, we should say that 17 is not underage in the UK. The age of consent in the UK is 16.
It's gone up, hasn't it, to 18? I thought it had gone up.
I don't think so.
It was at the time, though, 16. It would only went... If it has gone up, I can't remember if it actually did. But... Anyway,
we can check that.
Regardless,
but at the time, definitely the age of consent was 16. So whilst I'm not condoning it, she wouldn't have been considered underage.
No.
In the UK at that time.
Icky,
anyway,
but not illegal.
Correct. So anyway, Epstein also cultivated all of these academics. So he donated money to Harvard, to MIT, and to lots of other universities. In fact, he flew Stephen Hawking to his island for a conference on gravity.
I remember this coming out when the Stephen Hawking had been on the island and everybody being like, ugh.
He flew Stephen Hawking out there to give a talk. It wasn't to
no, to
do
party.
anything.
Although Stephen Hawking's got a bit of a track record, hasn't he?
Well, he certainly did. I don't know. I don't know when he was in a wheelchair, but he certainly was a bit of a player when he was younger. That's for sure. But anyway, Epstein hosted dinners with Nobel Prize winners, with scientists, with people from the Santa Fe Institute. So he presented himself as someone really interested in big ideas and in funding research and in connecting brilliant minds together. And a lot of very intelligent people decided that that was worth engaging with, despite the rumors that were cultivating even then at that time.
Right, really? So people were already talking about it?
Yeah, absolutely, because
people were like, well, it's worth it.
By the late 90s, there were rumors. People knew something was off. There were whispers about young girls at his houses. There were even jokes about it, if you can fathom that. But nobody did anything.
It because it's done all the time, isn't it? Well, he likes a bit of young women. Like, that's done all the time. So I'm not surprised at all. And it is disgusting.
But nobody did anything because Epstein was useful. He had money.
Money.
And he had access and he could open doors. And if you're a scientist trying to get funding, or a politician trying to get donations, or a prince trying to maintain relevance, you make a calculation.
So self-interest is worth... Yeah.
Of course it is.
I'll overlook that because I can benefit.
Right. The benefits outweigh the risk, don't they? But
the
first proper investigation...
really.
Yeah, well, whatever about morals. But
I know, but we've had that conversation already, but nobody else is ready for that.
The first proper investigation starts in 2005.
Right.
Because Palm Beach police got a report from the mother of a 14-year-old girl.
Yes.
And the girl says that she was approached by another teenager at her high school offering $300 to give a massage to a man in Palm Beach. So she goes to Epstein's house, she's taken to a room, and she's molested. And of course the mother reports it, and the police start investigating. And once they start, they find more. Lots more. So they identify dozens of girls, all with similar stories, all approached by recruiters, often other teenagers who they're in school with or who they know in their circle. They're all offered money for massage work. They're all taken to Epstein's house and they're all sexually abused. And some of them were as young as 14, like this young girl. So the police build a really, really strong case. They've got victim testimony, they've got corroboration, they've got evidence of payments, and they want to charge him with multiple counts of unlawful sexual activity with a minor.
Right.
And of course, this should have ended him. But it doesn't.
Oh, my God.
Because the state attorney, called Barry Krishna...
Oh, no. I know what's coming.
Takes it to a grand jury, but he only presents one charge, solicitation of prostitution. So he's not charging for abuse. He's not charging for trafficking. He's charging for solicitation, right?
Let me guess.
So...
What was his name? Barry?
Krisha.
How many times had he been to...
We'll get to that. So the grand jury returns an indictment, but the indictment is really weak. And then the FBI gets involved because there's evidence that this has crossed state lines, of course, because he's doing it in New York, he's doing it in Palm Beach, he's doing it in New Mexico. And so in the US, once something crosses state line, it becomes a federal crime.
Right.
So the US attorney for the Southern District of Florida is Alex Acosta. And Acosta's office starts negotiating a deal with Epstein's lawyers. And Epstein's legal team at this point is extraordinary. It is a superstar team. There's Alan Dershowitz, who, if you watch politics at all, you'll see all over the...
I love that.
He's a commentator on... what?
If you watch it at all. No, I don't. No.
Yeah.
You know for what.
I know. So he's a heavy hitter, right?
Right.
He's a famous lawyer. He's a constitutional law expert. He's a professor at a university. Like, he's a serious heavy hitter. Then you've got Roy Black, you've got Ken Starr, and you've got Jay Lefkowitz. These are serious heavy hitters of a legal team.
Right.
And they're pushing back hard And because they've got leverage, because people knows people, or Epstein knows people, they're able to push back like this. So
Jesus Christ.
In 2007, Acosta offers him a deal. Do you want to know what that deal is?
I'm going to be angry, aren't I?
Epstein pleads guilty to 2 state charges, not federal charges, state charges. 1 count of procuring a person under 18 for prostitution, yeah, and 1 count of solicitation of prostitution. So what happens? Well, he gets 18 months in county jail. Not a federal prison, mind, county jail. But what actually beggars belief is that he's allowed work release 6 days a week. Not just 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. So he basically gets to go home and spend that time in his office. So he sleeps in jail in the evenings. Basically, jail is like a bed and breakfast.
Like a motel. He's at a motel.
Yeah.
The actual ever-living
the federal government agrees not to prosecute him or any of his named or unnamed co-conspirators. That means, they're given blanket immunity. That means that Maxwell, and that means that anyone else involved, they're all protected. They all get immunity from future prosecution. Can you believe this?
It's American legal system. Of course I can believe it, but I'm horrified at the same time. Like,
so the deal is then sealed so that nobody knows about it. The deal is sealed and the victims are not told about this deal, which in turn violates the crime victims' rights act.
That must be illegal, surely.
It is illegal, but I mean, who cares? These are all powerful people. Anyway, the case is then closed. So Epstein then serves 13 months. Well, he doesn't even serve 13 months. He spends 13 months sleeping in the jail and the rest of the time, and a Sunday. So he's out in 2009. Now he has to register as a sex offender, but that's it. But within a few years, he's back. Obviously not as publicly, but his network is still there. He's still flying people around on his Lolita Express. He's still hosting gatherings and parties, and crucially, he's still connected. Very well connected.
This is just entirely insanely fucked up. Carry on.
So in 2019, the Miami Herald publishes a massive investigation. Julie Brown was the reporter, fabulous reporter. And she tracks down dozens of victims. And she lays out the whole thing. And of course, this reignites public pressure. So the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New York arrests Epstein in 2019.
Right.
And this time, there are federal charges for the sex trafficking of minors. And you can see, there's all of the footage in front of the house where he's arrested and all the rest of it. The problem is a month later. I think that's in that
documentary, yeah. Sorry,
is it okay? But anyway, a month later, he's dead. He's found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center.
Didn't he? Suicide.
Right. The official ruling was suicide by hanging. And so the criminal case against him dies with him. Of course it does. Which is highly convenient for all of those famous and influential people who were probably very worried about how much he was going to say.
There's going to have been a lot of loo paper that was gone through in the time that in that month.
This is it. Now, Maxwell then, there's this huge hunt for Maxwell. She bolts and goes into hiding and all the rest. I mean, I don't know why she didn't leave the United States, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But anyway,
stupid, aren't they? But anyway,
she bolts to this remote house and lives there, and she gets arrested in 2020.
Right.
She's then convicted in 2021 on multiple counts of sex trafficking and conspiracy, and she's now serving 20 years.
Right.
In a really plush prison, by the way. A low security prison. So she was in a maximum security prison, which is where she was supposed to be for her crimes. But then the Deputy Attorney General went to talk to her. And miraculously, 3 or 4 days later, she was transferred to an open prison where she gets to walk into town every day. and have puppies and train dogs and and somebody with her sort of conviction shouldn't be in this prison, but obviously she got special treatment.
Christ.
Anyway, I'm pretty sure that Trump is going to pardon her because
I saw something that she was.
He's a disgusting piece of shit.
Well, he is. But I saw something that said that she would talk if she got clemency or something. There was some. She's trying to negotiate it.
The problem is, though, she's not a credible witness. She's lied so many times, so she's not credible. The thing is, though, she knows too much. And, she's already dangling this over their heads. But most of the other people in Epstein's network were never charged, so, because the non-prosecution agreement protected them. And even now, we still don't have full transparency about who knew what, who was involved, who looked the other way. Like, it's ludicrous.
Holy shit. Like, what the f***? I think what's overwhelming about that is the number of points. There are so many times where someone with any type of power could have stepped in and stopped it and didn't. And at every single one of those stages, there's a decision that is actively made. And it's not passive in any way, shape or form. There is an active decision made that allows it to continue. It's outrageous.
And this is, but exactly that. But that's not an accident, that's a two-tier system working as designed when the people being protected have enough leverage. But I think what we probably need to do is have a look at how that leverage actually operates, how it works. So
definitely.
The question is, how does someone like Epstein maintain protection to the level that he had for decades?
Decades. Oh my God. Carry on.
Because it's multiple systems of protection that are operating simultaneously. You've got legal protection, you've got social protection, you've got institutional protection, and what I'd probably call network protection, which is when people around you have an incentive not to expose you because then that exposure would expose themselves. Jesus. So if we look at the legal protection, because that's probably the most transparent failure and it's absolutely enraging, all of it, you have this 2008 plea deal with Alex Acosta, which was negotiated, right? This non-prosecution agreement. That's not normal. That is not normal. Federal prosecutors had so much evidence of interstate sex trafficking of minors that it just doesn't make sense. They had dozens of victims. They had flight logs. They had witness testimony. They had financial records showing payments to the girls. That's just not a prosecutable case. I mean, it's almost ironclad, isn't it?
I mean, it's really strong case. Tied up, and it's
in a bow.
There's nothing.
Here you go.
It's delivered. It's hand delivered. It's a Fortnum and Mason. Well, no, let's not compare them. But like it's unbelievable. Yeah.
But instead, Acosta's office gives Epstein a deal that's so lenient. It's almost incomprehensible.
Well,
can you imagine?
Wow.
18 months in county jail with work release. So he's in his office 12 hours a day, 6 days a week.
But still nobody
He's barely in custody.
Right, and still nobody actually knows what he's doing for work? Or do we know?
No, we don't know.
So he's allowed to go and work, but nobody knows what he's doing.
What he's doing, exactly. So, a federal non-prosecution for him and all of his co-conspirators. The agreement is sealed so that the victims cannot challenge it. It's disgusting on multiple levels.
This is so traumatizing.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, Acosta later said that, and this is on record, that he was told to back off because Epstein belonged to intelligence. Now, obviously, since then, he's walked that back. In fact, he said he was misquoted, which, of course, is the typical Trumpian playbook. The problem is the quote exists, it's on video, it's there, and whether or not that's literally true, the behavior is consistent with someone who believed Epstein was protected at a level above normal prosecution.
Right. And that is what's so disturbing about this, because it's not failure of the system in the sense of incompetence that we might have discussed before, right? Those girls were telling the truth. The police believed them. They knew it was happening. The evidence, as we've said, it was there.
Yeah, they had evidence.
It was all there. And then the decision was made to just let him walk anyway. Let
him walk away, exactly. So if you're a Costa, you know that prosecuting Epstein, you know what it means, or what it suggests. It means that you're going to be exposing everyone in his network, and that network includes former presidents, sitting politicians, billionaires, future presidents as well, if you include Trump. Although nobody knew that he was going to be president because he was just a raging narcissistic reality TV person. But anyway, these are people with the ability. Actually, he wasn't. I think he was a bankrupt at the time.
2001,
anyway, whatever.
He was on the one that Alan Sugar
was he?
does.
Right, yeah,
What's
okay.
it called?
The Apprentice.
You're fired. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he was definitely doing it then.
So these are all people with the ability to end your career, aren't they? So you've got a choice. You can do the right thing and face the consequences, or you can do the expedient thing and give him a deal that protects everyone. And Acosta chose the latter, and he was rewarded for it because Trump made him Labour Secretary in his first term in 2017. So let's not pretend he wasn't rewarded for this.
Oh, it goes all the way to the top.
Yeah, he was rewarded for this.
Oh my good God.
But the thing is, the legal protection is only one layer. The social protection is just as important, and it's actually even more insidious if that's even possible.
Yes. Because
it's informal. So you have to remember, Epstein spent decades cultivating relationships with people who had reputational capital. So scientists, academics, public intellectuals. And those people provided him with something that you just can't buy, legitimacy. When you've got Stephen Hawking attending your conference, a speaker at your conference, when you have Nobel laureates at the dinner table, when Harvard and MIT are taking your money, that sends a really strong signal. And it says, this person is serious, this person is credible, this person is worth engaging with. And then, of course, you've got Prince Andrew, who is absolutely central to that social acceptance, because Andrew is not just a famous person. He's not just any famous person. He is the Queen's son. He is royalty.
And it's the states who would see that as actually they would see that more impressively than we might hear.
Oh, but this is huge legitimacy, because when royalty is your friend, when royalty is staying at your house and flying on your plane, that provides a level of social legitimacy that money just cannot buy.
Right.
It says that you're not just rich, you're respectable. No, not just respectable, you're establishment. And that was incredibly valuable to a working class boy from Brooklyn. Very valuable.
And Maxwell facilitated that, right? That was her value. It's a little bit like when you were describing earlier how she would go and get the girls, Fred and Rose West deliberately, and so did Myra Hindley and...
Yes, the women, because it lowers the guard.
Right. Deliberately took women with them to get the victims. So that was her value, Maxwell's. She was the bridge, right? Because she had all these social connections that he didn't have, and she used them. Right?
Yeah, completely. Maxwell introduced Andrew to Epstein in the early 90s, and Andrew became a regular. Because you have to remember, everybody thinks just because you're royalty, you've got shit tons of money. You don't.
It's not true.
No, you have to, there's a lot of expenses to go with it. And Andrew and Fergie apparently had hugely expensive tastes in lifestyle and lived way above their means. The Queen Mother, the same thing. The Queen Mother was this raging, narcissistic lunatic who basically I know. I'm going to be trolled now because,
I'm
oh my
so
God,
scared for you.
the nation's granny. No, the nation's granny was a bitch. So, it's well documented. He said, he stayed at the houses, he went to the island. He was photographed with Epstein constantly. And that association gave Epstein this access to suckles that he would have been able to break into.
Right.
British aristocracy, not a hope.
No.
European elite, not happening. People who cared about titles and lineage. You're sorry, but you're not getting in.
No, not a chance. No.
So Andrew was very useful in that sense. He smooths the path because, if Andrew introduces you, then of course you're going to be automatically accepted because his introduction is a sign of legitimacy, isn't it?
Right.
So he was useful. And the fact that Andrew was willing to maintain that friendship even after Epstein's 2008 conviction, it says a myriad of things, because he was photographed with him in New York in 2010, walking in Central Park. And that also sent a message.
I remember because that was a big scandal as well that recently,
it wasn't a big scandal at the time. It was a big scandal,
Yeah, recently.
when he gave this up interview. And,
Everyone's desperate for us to do it.
Basically what that says, him still being seen with them, him socializing with them, is that the conviction doesn't matter. The accusations don't matter. Epstein is still acceptable.
Jesus. And meanwhile, Andrew was also allegedly abusing girls that Epstein and Maxwell were providing him with. So,
right. Well, this is it. Because Virginia Giuffre has said repeatedly that she was trafficked to Andrew on multiple occasions. As we already said, there's the photograph of Andrew with his arm around her when she was 17, Maxwell in the background, taken in Maxwell's house. Andrew denies it, but, he gave that catastrophic interview to the BBC where he claimed he couldn't have been with Giuffre on the night that she described because where else would the Queen's son be but in a Pizza Express in Woking of all places. It's absurd. I don't even know where the Woking is. Why would Andrew?
I think
it's in Surrey.
Berkshire. Oh, okay. Well, Woking, Surrey. Yes, that sounds right. Yes, because
the whole thing was absurd.
It's a farce,
absurd. And then after doing this up interview and denying everything, he gives her a settlement. He pays her a settlement, millions of pounds. Of course, he didn't admit guilt, but he paid. So, I think the point is, though, that once you've accepted that money, once you've been to his island, once you've been photographed at his events, you've got skin in the game, haven't you? Because if Epstein goes down... Yeah, exactly. And it turns out that he was a prolific sex offender the whole time that you knew him, which he was, then you look complicit.
Yes.
Or at best, you look like an idiot. At best, you look like an idiot.
At very best.
There's an incentive to defend him, isn't there? Or a minimum not to ask any questions. And that's exactly what happened with these people. That's exactly what happened.
Well, absolutely. And what makes me furious about that is that these are supposed to be some of the most intelligent people in the world, right?
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, they're people
the
whose
richest,
job...
maybe. Yeah.
Okay. But it's their job to think critically, right? To ask the difficult questions and to not just accept things. This is their literal jobs, to not accept things at face value. And they all decided it was just fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
They all decided the money was worth it, or the access was worth it, or they just didn't want to know. Right?
Yeah, exactly that. But you can see the rationalizations, can't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, he's interested in science. He's funding important research. We can't be responsible for every donor's personal life. I mean, it's horseshit. They knew, or they could have known if they had even bothered to look.
Do they not do research into their backgrounds when somebody makes a donation like that? Or do they just go, thanks?
If I'm giving you £5 million for research or your political campaign or whatever, I'm not going to look too closely at you. Because they chose not to. Because that would have been inconvenient.
I'm not sure about that one. But okay.
Because it actually brings us to the third layer that I mentioned, which is institutional protection, which is where they come in, you know. Because institutions are designed to protect themselves, not to expose wrongdoing. Take Harvard, for example. Epstein donated money to them. Shit tons of money. To the point where he even had an office there. Even though he wasn't faculty, he had an office in Harvard. So, yeah. That's how much money he donated. They gave him an office, just probably for, well, he wanted one just to say that he had an office in Harvard. Who the f knows? So he was connected to the researchers, to the program for evolutionary dynamics, for example, a big program. And when questions started being asked about why Harvard was taking money from a convicted sex offender, the university's response wasn't to investigate how that had happened. It was to defend the decision, to say that the donations, donations were for legitimate research. It minimized the entire association. Same with MIT. They did the same thing. Epstein donated money there as well, and when it came out that the MIT Media Lab had been taking his donations, even after his 2008 conviction, after he was a registered sex offender, there was an internal scandal, yes. Joy Ito, I think her name is. I might not be pronouncing that right, or Joy Ito, who ran the Media Lab. She had to resign.
I remember that name.
Yeah, because
oh my God.
The response from the institution wasn't asked why this was allowed to happen or who signed off. It was to contain the damage and move on. And, you know, that's what institutions do. They protect their reputations. They protect their funding streams. They don't expose themselves unless they're forced to. So even when people inside those institutions knew something was wrong, and people absolutely knew, I don't care what they say, they just didn't have an incentive to act. And the institution didn't have an incentive to make them act. That's the thing.
Oh, my God. So you've got legal protection, social protection...
Yeah.
Institutional protection. What was the fourth one? You said network protection?
Right, network protection. So this is when the people around you can't expose you without exposing themselves.
Right. Because that was going through my brain all the time when you were talking about all the minimizing of his things. What was he got on them, basically, was my thought.
Well, this is it. And this is where things like the flight log matters, because we know who was on that plane. We know who went to the island. We know who stayed in his houses. And some of those people were involved. Some of those people abused girls. Not all of them, but some of them certainly did. Some of them witnessed the abuse happening and said nothing. To me, that's just as bad as being part of the abuse.
You're a guilty party. If you watch something happen and you do nothing about it, and you continue as well to keep going back.
Right. You know, some of them knew what was happening and decided it wasn't their problem. And once you're in that network, once you're implicated, even passively, you can't turn on Epstein without risking your own exposure. And also, I mean, he was well known for blackmail and stuff like that. We'll talk about that in a minute. What? So, yeah, you've got situations where dozens, possibly hundreds of wealthy and powerful men, and make no mistake, wealthy women as well, you know, have a vested interest in keeping this quiet. Not because they're all abusers, I will say that. Though some of them absolutely are. Right. But because they were there. They were adjacent. You know, that adjacency is enough, or should be enough. It doesn't seem to be in the US, but it seems to be enough to destroy a reputation if you're Democratic. It doesn't seem to be enough to destroy a reputation if you're a Republican or the President of the United States. Well, but it should be enough to destroy a reputation.
Convicted sex offender in the White House, but yeah.
Right. But this is it.
Well, and that's why the non-prosecution agreement was so important then, because it didn't just protect him, right? It protected
them all.
Absolutely everyone around him.
Yeah, exactly. It basically immunized the entire network. And I think that was the point when they did it. Because if you do prosecute Epstein properly, you have to prosecute the entire network. You have to charge Maxwell. I'm sure they're not that bothered about that. But you also have to investigate everyone who facilitated this. And then that means subpoenaing flight logs, deposing witnesses, going after really powerful people. And the deal that Acosta created prevented all of that. It closed the case without exposing anyone else. And I have to be honest with you, I don't think that was accidental. I really don't.
Of course it wasn't. I'm going to be absolute about it. I know you're not being, but I'm going to be like, of course it wasn't.
No. You know, there is a behavioural mechanism here that I think is worth naming.
Ooh, fun.
Because it's not used to Epstein. It's called pluralistic ignorance. It's when everyone in a group privately believes that something is wrong, but nobody acts because they assume everyone else is fine with it.
We've talked about this before because it happens so often. I've seen it so many times. And then one person will say something and everyone goes, oh, me too. And then all of a sudden So
you've got all of these people in Epstein's orbit, scientists, politicians, businessmen, and they're all seeing these young girls around. They're all hearing rumours, but nobody says anything because they assume if it was really a problem, someone else would have said something. And that assumption creates a kind of collective paralysis.
Right, exactly. Like the Gwen Shamblin situation, right?
Right, yeah.
But that only actually works if people actually think it's wrong, doesn't it? I'm not convinced they all did. I think some of them genuinely didn't see these girls as people whose welfare kind of mattered, or well-being. For sure. And that's where we get into something called moral disengagement, right? Which is Bandura's concept. It's the process by which people convince themselves that ethical standards don't apply in a particular situation. I just need my book because I need to write this down. Go on, carry on.
South African apartheid would be one of those situations where that would apply. And there are several mechanisms to this. One is moral justification. You tell yourself that you're serving a higher purpose. So the lawyers, for example, so Alan Dershowitz might tell himself he's defending the principle of a fair trial, not defending a predator. Everyone has the right to a fair, unbiased trial, which they do, but... I mean, it's nonsense, obviously. It's just a convenient story, isn't it? You know? The second one is euphemistic labeling, that you use language that sanitizes what's happening.
Right.
So instead of child abuse, you've got solicitation. Instead of victims, it's prostitutes. And that was the language used in the plea deal. The charges were solicitation of prostitution from a minor.
And
as if a 14-year-old can be a prostitute.
Exactly.
As if that's a meaningful legal category.
There's
it's
no
obscene.
such thing.
It's obscene.
There's no such thing.
You even see it in the media right now.
Yes.
Instead of calling him, predator, paedophile, they're calling him disgraced financier.
What?
Fuck off. Yeah. Fuck off.
But you see it as well when they say, oh, they're a child prostitute. There's no such thing. A child cannot be a prostitute because a child cannot consent to sell their body. What they are is a rape victim. That is it. The end.
That is it. End
There's
of story.
nothing else. Jesus.
Then you've got displacement of responsibility. So you tell yourself you're just following orders, or you're just doing your job, or you're not personally accountable. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Milgram. No, that's not displacement of responsibility. That's the authority principle. But you've got diffusion of responsibility, which is different to displacement of responsibility.
Yeah,
when wrongdoing happens within a group, individuals feel less personally responsible because they assume someone else is going to act.
Yes, right.
Dehumanization comes into it as well. You strip the victims of their humanity so that you don't have to empathize with them. And that's what happened here. The legal system, the media, even some of the people around Epstein referred to these girls as prostitutes. And even if you look at the media right now, the victims are almost sidelined.
Yes, all the time.
And when you refer to these victims these 14, 15-year-old girls as prostitutes, as if they had agency, as if they were making informed choices, then it's disgusting because they were children. And the language was designed to obscure that fact.
It's
hideous.
revolting.
It's hideous.
It's utterly revolting. Once you've dehumanized the victims, it becomes so much easier to justify protecting the perpetrator, right?
Oh, yes.
Because if they're prostitutes, then Epstein's just a wealthy man with bad judgment, or in the woke world now, using a sex worker, and he's entitled to do that with his money, right? He's not a predator. If they're prostitutes, then it's transaction, not an abuse.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And that framing just protects everyone who wants to maintain their relationship with him. And I mean, it's utterly disgusting. It's repulsive. It's repugnant, but it's effective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's hugely effective, massively effective. And I think one of the things that we do need to talk about is the role of money, because Epstein had access to enormous wealth, and wealth buys things. Wealth buys lawyers, and he had the best lawyers that money could buy. As I've said before, Alan Dershowitz, Ken Starr, Roy Black. And the reason I keep mentioning their names is because they are just as culpable as he is. I don't give a fuck that they're hiding behind this idea of, oh, well, I was just protecting my client. Your client was a predator.
Right.
I don't give a fuck. So, but money also buys silence. So there were...
Oh, yes, it does.
But again, you've got these lawyers doing the same thing with this, so they were enabling this as well. You know, settlements with victims, non-disclosure agreements, payments to make problems go away.
Jesus.
It buys access. You know, he could donate to universities, he could donate to politicians, he could donate to charities, and that bought him credibility. Right. It also buys insulation. So he could afford to structure his life across multiple legal jurisdictions. He could afford to live across multiple properties. He could afford to have multiple legal entities. He could be multiple legal entities, so that prosecuting him becomes really logistically complicated. And I think the question that nobody has yet answered, which we've touched on 2 or 3 times now, is where the did that money actually come from?
Where did it come from?
Because we don't know. We still don't know. Wexner seems to be the only confirmed client. And even that relationship is incredibly opaque. So either Epstein was genuinely managing billions of dollars for someone we don't know about, which is entirely possible in that wealth management world. Clients don't like to be known, and you're not allowed to talk about them.
Once you're in as well, you've got you could see how someone could...
Or the money came from somewhere else. And the most plausible explanation... But the thing is, after all of these investigations, other clients would have come out of the woodwork. You know?
Or they wouldn't, because it would mean being associated, so they might not.
Well, there would be a paper trail of the money he was managing. They raided his office, Helen.
Yeah, okay.
There would be client
but can
paperwork.
We trust anything given that all this network that he's got, the network protection?
No, I mean, you can't trust...
Look at the redacted emails and stuff. Like, they've made
you
it
can't trust the Trump administration at all, especially somebody like, you know, Pam Bondi, who's, I mean, just as an aside, if you saw her Congress things yesterday, I mean, she's a f***ing
Is she the blonde woman?
Well, they're all blonde, Helen.
Yes, because he likes it, yes. True. I saw a clip of somebody being talked to by a black lady. Was that it?
That's Pam Bondi, yeah. That black lady you're talking about, what's her name? She's a member
I don't know her name.
Brilliant. She's brilliant. She's so ghetto. I love her. She doesn't mince her words. Like, she's in there. And but anyway, you know, the most plausible explanation I can think of, and this isn't confirmed, but the circumstantial evidence is pretty significant, is that he was involved in compromat operations.
Meaning blackmail? As in, the KGB during the Cold War?
Yeah.
You say to me, I'm dramatic and read too much. You can be so flippin' extra sometimes. Come on. Like that, come on.
Well, that blackmail and intelligence work, because there are allegations, that, and they come from multiple sources, that Epstein was recording people. There were cameras all over his house.
Interesting, because I was wondering how we've got so much footage of all these. Anyway, yeah, go on, carry on.
All of his houses had cameras in them, in the bedrooms, in the bathrooms, in the public area, like everywhere. His houses were wired for everything. So it's possible that he was providing intelligence to state actors. Israel has been named.
Right.
The U.S. intelligence officers themselves have been named. And if that's true, then maybe the money wasn't from financial services. It was payment for information, for leverage, for blackmail material on powerful people. It wouldn't be outside the realms of possibility.
Okay, well, now I feel bad for calling him extra, because that would explain why he was protected at the level he was protected at. Because if he's working for intelligence services, then prosecuting him means exposing operations that governments don't want exposed, maybe.
Well, this is it. I mean, obviously, we don't have any proof. The documentation isn't public. But we know his mentor early on was someone called Stephen Hoffenberg, who ran a Ponzi scheme. And, of course, they're all peas in a pod.
And
has said on record that Epstein was involved in intelligence work. We also know that Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, was almost certainly working for Mossad. We know that Epstein had relationships with people in Israeli intelligence. We know Acosta said that he was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence. We know the houses had all of this surveillance equipment, although that might be just because he was a filthy scumbag. But we know there are allegations from multiple victims that they were told to provide information about the men they were trafficked to. So the circumstantial case is strong. And if it's true, then what we're looking at isn't just a sex offender who got away with it because he was rich. What we're looking at is a state-protected operation that used sexual abuse as a mechanism for gathering leverage on powerful people, which is a whole different category of crime entirely. And it means that the protection went all the way to the top, because you don't run an intelligence operation without serious institutional backing.
Right? Because
it's true, though.
Yeah. And it brings us to the question of why those powerful people were vulnerable to that leverage in the first place. Because you don't get compromised in, that sort of thing without someone doing something they know that they shouldn't be doing, right? And what that then tells us is that there were a lot of men in positions of power. Oh, this is going to make me... Hang on. A lot of men in positions of power who were willing to abuse children in front of other people when they thought that they could get away with it, when it was sanctioned and safe.
But exactly that. What was Epstein offering? What were these men getting out of this? Because it wasn't just access to a private island or a nice dinner, Helen. It was something else.
Right.
For sure. It was something else.
Making me feel a bit icky, but as it should. Right, yeah. So then we need to talk about what was actually happening for the people that were involved in this, right? Because I think there's a tendency to treat this as if it's just about power and money and leverage, right? And yes, it is those things, but it's also about something much more basic, which is that a lot of men in positions of power wanted access to girls that they could abuse, and Epstein provided that. Yeah, right.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with it, and I think people want to avoid that conclusion because it's uncomfortable. It's easier to talk about institutional failures or legal corruption than it is to say there were dozens, possibly hundreds of wealthy and powerful men who were willing to sexually abuse children when they thought nobody would find out.
Right.
And that's what the evidence shows.
Right. So, okay, so let's talk about what was being offered then, because the recruitment process that Maxwell ran, the way the girls were brought in, that was designed to make this feel transactional, right?
Right.
It was framed as work. And actually, when you listen to them, that's what it was. That's what they described it as, right? And because they were told that they would be told that they would be giving massages, that they'd be paid well for it, right? Mm-hmm. And it was presented as something completely legitimate, safe,
totally
right?
legitimate. Yeah.
And for girls, as this is the bit, right? For girls from economically vulnerable backgrounds, that is going to be appealing, if not intoxicating, or impossible to resist. Because $300 for an hour's work back then, for an hour's work when you're 14, your family is struggling, that is a significant amount of money, as you said.
Well, back then that would have been almost a month's rent, wouldn't it?
I mean,
a month's rent would have been maybe $500. Like, that's a serious amount of money for an hour's work.
Right. But that sort of transaction framing also served another purpose, right? Because it makes the men feel like that this is consensual. They want to be there. These girls are choosing to be there. Yeah. Well, and that's what's protective
They're on duty.
for them.
They're working.
Right. They're working. They're earning money. They want it, and that's what, makes it protective for them, isn't it? Because it allows them to kind of avoid the confronting of what they're actually doing, that they're being abusive.
It's a classic predatory behavior.
Yeah. I mean, I know.
You create a situation where, I mean, you know this.
I do.
You create a situation where the victim feels complicit. And then you pay them so that they feel like they've entered into an agreement. Then you make them recruit others so they feel implicated. And that makes it much harder for them to report what happened because they feel responsible. They feel like they've participated. It's deliberate psychological manipulation. And
100%.
I don't use that word lightly.
You do not. I had a little discussion with someone about it the other night in the use of the word manipulation. And Right. And so the younger the girl then, the more effective that mechanism is going to be. Because a 14-year-old... and when you're 14, you think you know it all, and you're like, but you're so young still. Yes. And a 14-year-old does not have the capacity to recognise that she's being manipulated in that way. No, she doesn't understand that an adult man paying her for sexual contact is abusing her, not employing her, right? Yeah. She might well feel uncomfortable. She might know that something is wrong. But she doesn't have the framework, maybe even the language to name it as abuse because she just doesn't know, right? And especially then, if the adult is telling her it's normal, not just one, multiple adults, and you've the men that are doing it, and Maxwell, it's all normal. It's all normal.
It is. It's all totally. The
Everyone
thing is, Maxwell
does this.
Totally central to this, right? Because having a woman facilitated changes the dynamic entirely. Completely. Just as you said. If it's just Epstein approaching teenage girls and saying, come back to my house and give me a massage, that's obviously predatory. Yeah. Yeah. But if it's Maxwell, a woman, someone maternal, someone who's reassuring and friendly, as all upper-class women are trained to be,
aren't we just?
Then that feels safer. It doesn't feel like a threat. And that's why so many of the girls trusted her. It was strategic.
If I see one comment saying they knew what they were doing, you will have all the wrath poured on you in every way possible because they did not. What Paul just said, it was strategic and it was deliberate. And then once they're in the house, once the abuse has happened, Maxwell's whole role shifts.
Yeah, right? Totally. Yep.
She becomes the person who just normalises it. Right? Yep. She tells them it's fine, everyone does this. You're doing so well. He really likes what you do for him. Here's your money. By the way, bring a friend next time. Right? Bring a friend. And you're like, oh, I've got this money. And actually, I can bring a friend, so it really must be okay, because they wouldn't tell me to bring a friend, right?
They would be telling me not to tell anyone.
Right. Because what we get told as girls, and I'm assuming you didn't get told this, but what we get told is if someone tells you to keep it a secret, you make sure you say straight away. We don't get told if someone asks you for a massage and then does unspeakable things to you, and pays you and tells you to bring a friend. And then tells you to
go and get your friends to come.
Right? But that reinforcement, that thing of the friends, it really matters because it's coming from another woman, right?
Yep.
It gives the girl permission to believe, maybe this isn't abuse. What did you call it? Learned self-invalidation. Yes. Self-gaslighting, I would call. But yes. I won't anymore. But learned self-invalidation.
I know you love a made-up term, but yes.
Are we really fighting now? Like, we're on the same page on all of this. No. In the comments.
I can't let it pass.
No, it's fair.
It's the narcissist in me. And the controller in me.
Don't give them that. They're going to like, oh my God. Okay.
Go on.
But anyway, the point being that maybe this isn't abuse. Maybe it's just something that happens. And I'm the one that's wrong.
Which is grotesque, isn't it?
Right?
Because it works.
Grotesque.
It's grotesque because it works. And the thing is, it worked for years because the girls who might have reported it felt complicit.
Yes.
And the girls who did try to report it weren't believed, or they were believed and nothing happened.
Yes.
Which is actually almost worse, I think. Now, on the perpetrator side, the men who were participating in this, they weren't all the same. Some of them were clearly predators in the same category as Epstein, but some of them were men who would have sought this out, who wouldn't have sought this out on their own. But when it was offered in the context, and I think you said this already, when it was offered in the context that felt safe and consequence-free, they participated.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there is a psychological phenomenon that's relevant here, and we call it moral licensing, where people who see themselves as good or ethical feel permitted to do something unethical because they've basically built up moral credit, right?
Right, got you,
so
yes. Yeah.
If you're a politician who's donated to charity, or a scientist who's working on really important research that saves lives or whatever, or a businessman who employs thousands of people, you might actually tell yourself that gives you permission to behave badly in your private life. Just this once. Or twice. Or only on the island. It's a cognitive distortion, but it's really common.
Well, we do it all the time with food, don't we? Well, I've been good today, so I can have a piece of cake. It's exactly what it is, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it
but
is.
in that context, though, because Epstein created, the context that he created reinforced that idea. Because you're not approaching it's not like what was his name? Hugh, the one that got caught with the
Well, don't they all eventually?
Yeah, but. Everyone's going to be screaming at this is what it feels like to be a ghost. You know the name and I don't. The reason it worked, because you're not approaching the girl on the street, are you? You're at a private estate and it's just falling in your lap. So I don't really do this thing. It's just that, I'm on an island surrounded by other powerful men and this is normal. You're being told it's normal, and it's what everyone does here, and it's no big deal. And minimize. And if everyone's doing it, then it can't be that bad, right?
But this is it. That's also the diffusion of responsibility again, isn't it?
Yes.
And there's also the fact that these men were used to getting what they wanted. You can't discount that. Because that's what power does. It reduces empathy, it increases entitlement, and it normalizes the idea that other people exist to serve your needs. And there's research on this. Keltner's work on the power paradox shows that people in positions of power become less attuned to other people's perspectives and more focused on their own desires. So if you're someone who spent decades having people defer to you, having your preferences prioritized, and of course this is why I'm a raging narcissist, having access to whatever you want, then the idea that you can't have this, that these girls aren't available to you, well, that might actually never even occur to you.
Well, I was just about to say, before you threw in your, this is why I'm a raging narcissist, unless you've grown up in it and had people countering that through your childhood, because our lot do not typically subscribe to that idea. They make you very conscious of the privilege that you have, right?
Yeah, and you're not allowed to be a raging narcissist. It's not accepted. It's
just not a done thing. So don't everyone, because you're perpetuating a bloody narrative, right? But going back to the,
I am.
Right. But people who haven't had the countering that you and I might have received, get all that, and it doesn't occur to them that they can't have what they want, and then the wealth amplifies it, right?
Yeah, it does. Big time. Especially in the United States.
Oh, hugely. Over here it's not as, but it does. Look at Jimmy Savile.
I mean, it does. Make no mistake, it does, but it's very apparent and noticeable in the US.
Right, because it insulates you, doesn't it, from consequences in almost
it does.
every other area of your life. Yeah. So if you make a mistake, you pay to fix it. Yep. In America, literally, It seems like you just pay someone for everything. If you break something, you can replace it.
So here's the thing. Let me tell you something really interesting. Okay. So Jeff Bezos, on where he lives, right? There is a law that says your hedge is not allowed to be above a certain height.
Right.
Or you'll be fined, whatever it is, $500 or $1,000. He simply just pays the fine.
Yeah, knew it.
Because he's so rich, he just goes, yeah, fine, whatever, just keep sending me the fine, I'll pay it. Isn't that disgusting?
I mean, it's just the level of entitlement. Now, I get he might want some privacy, but also move somewhere that you can have a higher hedge if you've got that much money, right? Like, what are you doing? But money's everything. If someone's upset with you, you can just throw them a bit of cash, compensate them. Look at Virginia,
I was going to say, isn't that what Andrew did?
Right. So the expectation then must become, I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. If there's a problem, I'll handle it. Right? I'll just throw some cash at it. And Epstein reinforces that by making the entire operation feel managed and safe. Right?
Right. This is it. It was run like a department, a business, and this would have given these people a sense of security and safety because that's how they're used to things being run. But he wasn't just providing access to girls. He was providing this assurance that there wouldn't be consequences.
Right.
So you've got the private locations. I mean, the island is obviously in the middle of nowhere. You need a private jet or a helicopter to get to it. You've got the non-disclosure agreements. You've got the payments. You've got the legal team. You've got the connections to people, all of these people in power. All of this was designed to create an environment where these men felt not just protected, I suppose, but cocooned. And
untouchable.
And untouchable. And they were protected for decades. I
mean, they thought it's like the old boys club, isn't it? It's even worse than that. No, I know, but it's that kind of thing of the door is closed and no one can see, therefore we can do whatever the we like.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So then let's talk about Maxwell specifically, because I think it's very easy to dismiss her. And I noticed this as well in documentaries I've seen of her, that she's almost cast as a victim, but she's actually
she's absolutely being cast as a victim, and her family are doing the same thing. Her family are going out into the press casting her as a victim and as the fall guy and as somebody who's been used as a scapegoat.
Her and she was abused and all that, right?
For sure.
So she was, I think it's really easy to dismiss her as a facilitator, right?
It is.
Or even, if we're not going down the victim, we could maybe people will level up to a facilitator. But she's even more than that, right? Because she was actively involved in that abuse. She participated. She recruited. She managed. And she did that for years. And there's something also that you mentioned right at the beginning, that they initially had this romantic relationship that then evolved into this thing. And there's something about what's going on that you get your partner. I mean, anyway, but even after his first conviction, she continued doing this. So what do you make of that? Because what?
Well, I mean, there's a few things, I suppose, because you have to remember, first, she was completely enmeshed with Epstein.
Right.
Completely. Financially, socially, emotionally, her entire life was structured around him. You also have to remember that after her father died and the family collapsed, Epstein became her world. So leaving him would have meant losing everything. Her home, her income, her social position, her identity. That creates an enormous barrier to seeing what's actually happening clearly, let alone acting on it. Yes. There's also identification with the aggressor.
Right.
You know, she's... And you see this, not just here, but in many different ways in life. She's operating in a world where men have power and women are commodified, right? And rather than resist that, she's aligned herself with the men. She's adopted their perspective. She's treating these girls the way the men treat them, as objects, as transactions. And that gives her power in a system where she otherwise wouldn't have this. You see this dynamic in cults. You see it in trafficking operations. You see it in institutional abuse. Someone who's lower down the hierarchy adopts the perspective of the people above them as a survival strategy. MAGA, prime example. They're all adopting the thoughts and processes and thinking of the billionaires. It's like, bitch, they don't care about you.
They do not care about you.
Honestly. But the thing is that over time, that perspective becomes internalized. You see it with internalized homophobia. You see it with internalized, and I mean this, internalized homophobia with gay men. You see it with internalized misogyny in women. You see it, you know, it stops being strategic and it actually becomes how you actually see the world.
Right. And then Maxwell had quite the background, of quite a particular background that made her very vulnerable to that, didn't she? Because from what I've seen, her father was really domineering, allegedly very abusive.
Prick.
I mean,
he was a prick.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely controlling, right? So I just wonder about what's going on, what replacement she's making. But so when she meets Epstein, who's wealthy and connected, and gives her a role that's familiar, you know, the gopher, essentially, a servitude. That's a dynamic that she knows how to navigate, to exist, to be comfortable in, right?
Yeah, it is. And once she's in it, the cognitive dissonance would have been enormous, because she's not stupid. Like, she's an intelligent woman.
She went to Oxford, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She is not stupid. She's not unaware of what abuse looks like. So to continue participating, she has to justify it to herself. She has to. And the justifications are probably the same ones that the men were using. These girls are choosing to be here. They're being paid. It's not that bad. Everybody does this. And over time, those justifications become beliefs. You mentioned, what's her name? Crazy bitch.
Ren Shamblin.
Yeah. Her justifications also became belief after a while, because that's how moral disengagement works. You tell yourself stories until you believe them.
Oh, and she's helping them, don't forget.
Right? Oh, yes.
She's doing
an
them a
integral
favour.
part.
Yeah, she's giving them money.
Which, of course, gets her praise.
Well, but in her mind, I mean, for the girls, that she's giving them money, so she's helping.
Both. It gets her praise from both, Helen.
Right. Oh, right, I see.
Facilitating the men, praising, and from
Getting
the girls,
money.
she's giving them incredible amounts of money that they're incredibly thankful for. And they don't realise until maybe sometime later that actually they're being brutally abused.
And then the fact that she was convicted and is now serving 20 years, which quite honestly is not enough, while most of the men in that network were never charged. Were any? Actually?
None.
Oh. I think that's actually
maybe
really
there
important.
was one charge. I don't know. I don't think there was.
Right. So, but that's really important to note, because it would be very easy for her to be the scapegoat here, to treat her as the villain and let everyone else off. Right? It's just the two of them. And so we'll just hold her accountable. And she is 100%. So don't mistake what I'm saying at all, because she is 100% absolutely culpable. But she's not the only one. right?
No, and that's the frustrating thing. Maxwell is in prison, yes. Epstein is dead, yes. And I know I keep alternating between Epstein and Epstein.
I don't know which one it is either, so I'm just going with you. Like, what else?
I think the Americans call it Epstein, but I think the original pronunciation is Epstein. It's
Stein
probably
would
a
make
German
more
name.
sense, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, yes, I know I'm pivoting between the two because I'm trying to remember to say Epstein rather than Epstein. But anyway, the network that enabled this is still largely intact. That's the thing. The men who abused these girls, the lawyers who protected Epstein. And the thing is with the lawyers, and I know I keep focusing on Alan Dershowitz because he is a fucking dirtbag. He goes on to, and the reason he's a dirtbag is because...
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the fact that I talk so often about how much you hate bullies, and here is the evidence, is what it is. People that exploit their positions, people who exploit their power are one of your, like, they are scum to you.
And you
hate them. And
this is exactly what he was doing. He was exploiting his position. He was exploiting his authority. He's exploiting his reputation for this. And is still doing it. He still protects Trump. He's a disgusting piece of shit. Anyway, getting that out of my system
anytime soon.
I mean, I know this has nothing to do with this, but I regularly turn down clients in the States who ask me to come and train in the States, and I say no, absolutely not. I just wouldn't chance it.
No, it's too
dangerous. There's an Irishman in ICE custody for the last 6 months.
On what grounds?
Something to do. He got stopped with a traffic violation, or I don't know. Anyway, a few days ago, I think it was last week, he made a phone call to Irish radio to tell them he was there. Now, of course, it came up in the Irish Parliament, and they're all going fuck nuts because the Prime Minister of Ireland, the Taoiseach, is supposed to go to the St. Patrick's Day parade on the 17th of March, and of course, the Irish Parliament, the Dáil, are now enraged by this. Like, why an Irish citizen is in ICE custody? Whatever the fuck for? In disgusting conditions. Anyway, that's an aside. The thing is, all of these lawyers who protected this scumbag, the institutions who took his money, the prosecutors who gave him a deal, all fucking dirtbags, a lot of them, none of them faced any consequences. And in fact, most of them are still in positions of power, and some of them were even rewarded. Acosta was rewarded. He was given a cabinet position.
How do we not become murdery?
Right. Because we're too precious to go to jail.
That is true. Although you would be running it. I need more training before I could be confident enough to be able to run. You'd be owning it within about 2 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'd have my bitches do my stuff for me.
Oh my God. Let's talk about the girls, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we've talked about the systems and the perpetrators, but we haven't talked enough about them. And you said earlier about how they seem to get forgotten
brushed
in all
aside.
of this.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, because they're minimised and sanitised and cast in these adult roles of choice and what have you.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've talked enough about actually what this cost the people who were abused. And obviously I'm going to think, that really matters, because it's so easy for this to become like an abstract story of conspiracy and corruption of power. And actually, as so often happens in these sort of scenarios or these conversations, we lose sight of the fact that there were real people whose lives not just damaged, but destroyed. Their brain development would have been destroyed by this,
Completely. Absolutely completely. And the psychological impact of this kind of abuse is profound and incredibly long-lasting.
Right.
You're talking about girls who were targeted during adolescence, which is already a very vulnerable period developmentally anyway. They were manipulated into situations where they were sexually exploited by adults, and they were made to feel complicit in this. That's the most disgusting thing. And the thing is, they were often not believed when they tried to report it. And then they had to watch as the people who abused them faced minimal, well, actually no consequences, because
None.
you know that does damage that absolutely persists.
Right. And the impact isn't just the abuse itself. And I'd say just, it's not only the abuse itself. It's what it does to your understanding of the world, right? And your relationships, your sense of safety, who you can trust and who you can't. If you're 14 years old, 14, and an adult tells you that this is normal, this is what powerful people do, that you're choosing this.
Yeah.
And then the legal system confirms that by not prosecuting them.
Yeah.
What on earth does that do to you? What does it teach you about your value and who gets protected and who doesn't? Because we also get taught, speak up, you could use your voice and blah, blah, blah. It teaches you that power matters more than truth, that wealth can insulate you from consequences, that the system isn't designed to protect you. And those lessons are corrosive, right?
Hugely corrosive.
Hugely. They affect your ability to trust people, to trust institutions. So you're never going to the police again when something bad happens. Right?
But this is it.
Right? You don't believe, you have no ability to trust that justice is possible, for example. That's not abstract.
No,
that's
it's
measurable psychological harm. And from what I understand, many of these girls went on to struggle, as you would expect, hugely.
Yes.
Substance abuse, mental health issues, difficulty with relationships. And I mean, that's totally sensical. It makes total sense given what they've been through. But then they also had to deal with being publicly disbelieved.
Yep.
Being called liars or opportunists or being blamed for what happened to them. That idea of they chose to. I mean, I've seen that on a micro, but I cannot begin to imagine what that does to someone on a macro. Money. Yeah. They just want cash. Money. Gold diggers. That's all they are.
Yeah.
They're just looking for their paycheck because they don't want to earn it themselves.
The poor, vulnerable,
oh my God,
abusing men. Yeah, I mean, it's re-traumatizing.
Sure.
And it continued for years, even after Epstein's arrest in 2019, even after Maxwell's conviction in 2020. You still had people defending them.
Right.
Her family in particular, but protecting her. But, all the others... and what's really interesting, and I suppose it's true to a certain degree, but the people, especially the mainstream media, are saying, oh, just because they're in the files doesn't mean that they're, part of the predator ring, which is absolutely true. But if you've been to the island multiple times, in his house multiple times, on his plane multiple times, then, there's something. There's something in that.
Yes.
Do I think Stephen Hawking was in it on it? No, I don't, because he was paid to go and give a talk. But, all the others, yes. I mean, do you know that Trump is mentioned in the Epstein files more times than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible? Trump is mentioned in the Epstein files more times than Harry Potter is mentioned in all 7 Harry Potter books. Yeah. That's just an aside for you. But
that's bananas. Okay.
The thing is, you still had and have people saying, especially on the mega side, that the girls are exaggerating, or that they were in it for the money, or that they should have known better, which is disgusting.
Oh, it's obscene. It's obscene. But it's also consistent with how we treat victims of sexual abuse, right? And particularly when the perpetrator is powerful, right? Because there's a systematic bias towards disbelieving victims when it would be inconvenient or uncomfortable to believe them. And I think, what strikes me is working with people who've been through trauma is just how isolating that is. When the thing that happened to you is something that people don't want to acknowledge because it's so uncomfortable. When your experience is denied or minimized, you can't process it properly. You can't integrate it into your own sort of existence, and that kind of just keeps you stuck in that role. It's absurd.
I can see that. And many of these girls didn't have support because they came from backgrounds where they were already vulnerable anyway. Exactly. So they didn't have resources. They didn't have people advocating for them. And the system that should have protected them failed them completely. So they were left to deal with all of this completely alone.
Right. And the thing is, none of it had to happen, right? Because at every single point, there were people who could have stopped it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Teachers at Dalton, right?
Yes.
Colleagues at, what was the Bear Stearns, or what was it called?
Bear Stearns,
Bear Stearns, right? People at Wexner's companies, scientists that took his money, the police in Palm Beach, prosecutors, and they all of them, every single one made a choice. I'm going to give the police a little bit of space because they tried, they knew, and I've seen the interviews, they wanted to, but they get shut down by the prosecutors. And I think that's what...
the police don't get to decide what gets prosecuted and what doesn't.
No, and it's the same here. So CPS gets to decide it here. People, I think that's
so we'll give the police a break on this one.
Yes, we'll let them off on this after that conversation the other night. I think,
in case Law Junkie gets upset with us for dissing the police. So you see, Law Junkie, we're being nice to the police in this one.
Because it's appropriate to be so, because they did try to do their job and they were prevented from doing it, and that wasn't on them, right? But I do think it's this that people find hard to accept, because it's easier to believe in one monster than to believe in a system full of people who all decided their careers or their funding or their reputations mattered more than stopping someone from, and this is disgraceful, abusing children. So what does that tell us about power, about institutions, about who gets protected?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Because, Epstein is dead, Maxwell is in prison, and everything that made this shit possible is still there.
Right.
But I also think, and I said this in the last video as well, about aberrations when we talked to, was it Gwen Shamblin? That we spoke about, where people were saying that...
she's an anomaly.
Yeah, then she's an aberration of Christianity. But I also think there's a temptation to treat Epstein as an aberration.
Absolutely.
As one uniquely evil person who managed to exploit the system. And I get that might be comforting because it means that the problem dies with him. But that's not what the evidence shows.
No, because what we've been describing isn't about one person. It's about structures. It's systems that protect power regardless of who's wielding it.
But this is it. And those structures are still intact.
Yeah.
The legal system that gave Epstein a sweetheart deal, that's still there.
Right.
The institutions that took his money and looked the other way, they're still operating. The social networks that provided him with legitimacy, those haven't dissolved.
Right.
And the men who participated in what he was doing, most of them, if not all of them, face no consequences whatsoever. So what has changed? Nothing.
And I think people want to believe that this couldn't happen again. That we've...
Bullshit.
I mean, well, exactly. It happens over... there's so many times. But people want to believe that it wouldn't happen again and we've learned something. But no, I don't think we have at all.
No, we haven't.
Right.
We absolutely haven't. Trump goes out of his way to protect these people.
Oh my God.
And himself, of course.
Obviously.
He should be in jail. In fact...
Without a doubt.
They all should, but I mean, that aside, you'd first need a legal system that doesn't defer to wealth and power.
Oh my God.
We don't have that, particularly in the United States. I don't know that we're as bad here in the UK, but there is an element of it.
Yeah.
They have a legal system where the quality of your defense is directly proportional to how much you can spend.
Yes.
So Epstein had, and I'm going to name them again, Alan Dershowitz, Ken Starr, and Roy Black.
Right.
The girls he abused had overworked public defenders, or nothing at all.
Right.
And the thing is, that imbalance isn't unique to this case. It plays out in the United States every single day.
Right.
And second, you need prosecutors who are willing to go after powerful people when it's politically inconvenient. Alex Acosta made a calculation. He knew that prosecuting Epstein properly meant going after everyone in his network, and that would have been messy and complicated and career-threatening. So he took the easy option. And as I've said before, he was rewarded for it.
I mean, disgraceful. Yeah.
And that incentive structure has not changed. And the thing is, Trump is very open about it. If you do stuff for me, I will reward you.
Right.
It's disgusting.
It is disgusting. But third, right, you'd need institutions that prioritise ethics over money, which they don't.
No,
right?
they don't.
Look at where all those places you've named, Harvard, they all took Epstein's money.
Yeah,
right?
they did.
Epstein, well, I don't even know how we're pronouncing it anymore, but they all took it, right? And when it became public that they'd done so, their response, as you've said, wasn't to examine their systems and ask, why did this happen? How did we get in this position? It was to minimise the damage and move on. Sweep it under the carpet. They've got the lumpiest rugs, along with narcissistic parents, from all the things they keep sweeping under them, right? Because institutions protect themselves first. And we're laughing, but it's not fucking funny, is it, really?
No, it's not funny.
That's what they're designed to do. Institutions always do it. And until there are actual consequences for taking dirty money, they'll keep doing it.
Yeah, they will keep doing it.
All the mechanisms that protected Epstein, whatever, the scumbag, they're still operating. They're still there.
Right, but and again, the thing is, they're not just operating; they're operating exactly as they've been designed to operate. This isn't a bug in the system, Helen. It's a feature of the system. The system is working as it's been intended to work, as it was created to work when it protects wealthy, connected people from accountability. It's exactly how the American system works.
Oh, I mean, it's disgusting. And I think there is something else that we need to talk about, which is the public response to this. Because when that story broke, when the Epstein story broke properly in 2019, there was outrage. People were horrified. You know, there still are. There's this, you know, still such conversation around it.
Yeah.
But that outrage was very selective, wasn't it?
Yeah. Completely selective. There was an enormous focus on the spectacle, on the private island, on the famous names, on the conspiracy theories, but very little focus on the systemic issues. People wanted to know who was in the flight logs, who went to the island, whether Epstein was killed or committed suicide. And fine, those are interesting questions, but they're not the important ones.
No, because they want the tea, right? They want the gossip, the jokes, the funnies, right? Because the important question, though, is how does the system allow this to happen in the first place? But
and nobody wants to answer that.
Right.
Nobody wants to answer it. Because the answer implicates institutions that people trust. It implicates universities, law firms, financial institutions, intelligence agencies, the entire legal system itself. And it's easier to focus on Epstein as the individual than to confront the fact that he was protected by structures that are still protecting other people right now.
Right. I also think, I mean, we've slightly touched on this, but there's a class element to this as well, right? That people don't want to acknowledge. And, you know, these girls that were abused were almost all from working class or lower middle class backgrounds, weren't they? They were
they were
economically vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the men who abused them were wealthy and powerful.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen some interviews where they've been promised college sponsorships and things, you know, by Epstein.
But not just promised it, were given it.
Oh, right.
And given modelling contracts and stuff like this.
Right.
Like, this we're talking hundreds of girls here.
Right. So they're economically vulnerable, and with these powerful, wealthy men, and the system chose to protect the wealthy men.
Yes.
Right.
And the thing is, it's not unique to this case either.
I know, but
that's how the system functions. If you're wealthy, you can afford lawyers who know how to navigate the system. You can afford to delay proceedings. You see Trump do this all the time. You know, you can delay proceedings. You can file motions to make prosecution expensive and time-consuming. You've got access to people in power who can intervene on your behalf. If you're poor, you've none of that. So the system treats you differently because the law is different. But because your ability to... well, actually, no, the law is not different, is it? That's the thing. The law is not different for rich and poor. It's actually your ability to access justice is different.
Yes, exactly.
And in the Epstein case, that disparity was extreme.
Huge.
Because he had unlimited resources and connections at the highest level of power. The girls had nothing. And the legal system reflected that. The language in the plea deal called them prostitutes.
Disgusting. It's disgusting.
The victims weren't even notified of that agreement. They had no meaningful representation.
It's beyond obscene. There's not even
It
words.
is beyond obscene.
Right.
It is beyond obscene, yes.
So if we were honest about what would need to change, we're not just talking about, I know, right? What was that, Sisyphus's boulder? But we're not just talking about prosecuting individual predators, are we? We're talking about fundamentally restructuring how power operates, particularly in the justice system in the States.
And the thing is that's not going to happen because of one case, is it? No matter how profile that case is, that would require sustained political will, it would require institutional reform, and to be honest with you, it would require cultural change. It would require people in positions of power to voluntarily give up the protections that they currently enjoy.
I was just thinking
and that's not, you know, which is why it doesn't and won't ever happen.
No. But meanwhile, what happens to the next person like Epstein?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Because the conditions that allowed Epstein to operate are still there. The wealth disparity is worse now than it was in the 90s.
So true. That's so true.
The influence of money in politics is even greater now than it was in the 90s. The protection that institutions provide for their donors, that hasn't diminished. So, if anything, it's actually easier now for someone with enough money and connections to insulate themselves from accountability. Not more difficult, it's easier.
I mean, that's a really bleak conclusion. Jesus.
Well, it is, but I think it's an honest conclusion. I think that's what people find difficult. But there's this desire for this story to have, a resolution, for justice to have been served. But justice wasn't served. Epstein's dead. Maxwell's in prison, and almost everyone else walked away. The victims got some financial settlements, which is something, but that's not justice.
Doesn't do anything.
And the structure that enabled the abuse, I mean, those structures are unchanged.
Completely. It's really interesting, though, isn't it, that they think that financial compensation is going to be the thing that will be...
Yeah, I'm sorry I destroyed your life and your psyche and your mental health. Here's,
and how you relate to other human beings in every...
And how you relate to... Here's
100,000. I mean, but it just goes... Again, it just proves that they think it's money buys silence. Money stops you complaining. Money is the answer to everything. There were some consequences, though, weren't there? Like Acosta resigned, and Andrew, who is no longer Prince, he's effectively been exiled from public life. So some of the people in Epstein's network have been socially shunned. Well, I don't even know that that's really social shunning.
Yeah, but
It's the
Helen,
family
those are
going,
reputational consequences, not
Right.
legal ones. And
True,
they're
yeah.
selective. Yes, fine, Andrew lost his public role because he did a disastrous interview and the monarchy had to protect itself. But he hasn't been prosecuted.
No.
Alex Acosta resigned from the cabinet, but he's still practicing law. He's still well connected. Dershowitz is still a prominent lawyer. Wexner may have stepped down from his company, but he's still a billionaire with significant influence. These aren't meaningful consequences in the sense of accountability. It's just PR management.
Just before I go on to the next question I had for you, I want to ask you, was Andrew exiled on the grounds of the interview or because of what came out?
Probably a combination of both, but I mean, the interview...
But it was the interview that tipped it over the edge.
Tipped it over the edge, yeah.
Which is disgusting in itself. I'm holding us accountable as a country. Like, why did it take the interview and not the initial...
Oh, it wasn't us as a countty that...
Well, I know, but I know that we're so
It was the
brutal
royal
about the
family who
states.
went, you mental, crazy now you
Like,
have to
in
be...
those exact words, is that a direct quote?
Yeah,
Right,
much.
okay,
That's a
great,
direct
right.
You now have to be stripped of all of your fancy medals and stuff, and exiled, and you're not allowed to be in public life, and you're stripped of your HRH and all the rest of it. But because, of course, I mean, the public outcry here after that interview was just insane. I mean, to be honest with you, the public outcry when it transpired that he was in the Epstein files was pretty brutal here.
I mean,
wasn't,
pretty scandalous then,
Yeah.
but then it went next level, didn't it? And I think
it was the interview when he tried to defend himself and he said really stupid things like, I don't sweat, and I was in Pizza Express, and... I'm just too decent a person. I'm too nice a person. He said shit like this, why did you continue seeing Epstein? Because, maybe I'm just too decent a person. Maybe I give people the benefit of the doubt. F*** off. Go f*** yourself.
Oh my God. Why did you watch Harold Shipman keep injecting all these old ladies?
I mean, it's just...
I thought he was doing something nice. What?
Where Andrew is concerned... the outrage was pretty spontaneously swift once his name was linked to Epstein. And the pictures of him in Central Park and all the rest of it started to circulate. People were kind of like, no, this is not acceptable, which is why the interview happened in the first place.
Okay.
To try and do damage control. And of course, he was very badly advised on that. But apparently he wasn't advised. He decided that he was going to do it himself.
Oh, the hubris and narcissism of it
you know?
all. Okay, so there's,
but anyway.
as you said, there were no meaningful consequences of or any accountability, and it's just PR management.
Yeah.
And so then I want to think about, I kind of go to the scientists who took his money and the institutions that hosted him and stuff.
I don't know what you expect me to say about them.
I don't know. I think at this point I'm so...
Well, the thing is, most of them just issued statements saying that they regret the association and have reviewed their donor policies. It's the thoughts and prayers bullshit when they get a school shooting, isn't it?
Oh, my God.
Which is basically, they said nothing substantive has changed, nothing at all. And, they'll be more careful next time, and they'll be more careful about the optics next time. But, I mean, the thing is, the fundamental dynamic, the institution accepting money from questionable sources because it's financially beneficial, that's still the same. That hasn't changed at all.
So what are we meant to take from this, then? If the system hasn't changed, if the people involved face... minimal my language is getting worse and worse as we go through consequences. I'm so enraged by it. But what is the point of understanding all this at all? Or people speaking up like it just doesn't incentivize anything other than protection.
The thing is, and I said this in previous videos about religion, the point is to stop pretending that this is an aberration. It's not.
It's not.
Because as long as we treat Epstein as one bad actor who exploited the system, we can avoid confronting the fact that the system is designed to be exploited by people with enough money and power. And that avoidance is convenient for people who benefit from the current system. But it's not honest. I'm not saying that there's an easy solution. There isn't. But, I mean, you might start with not electing a convicted sex offender as president
Right.
and a convicted felon as president. But,
Right.
that might be, start number
A good
one.
place. A good place to sort
and
of
then
launch
maybe,
from.
maybe not listen to all his narcissistic vitriol, but reform.
One day there's going to be like a thing on this channel that just says assassinated, mysterious circumstances or something.
Paul is no longer with us.
Helen died
We
in
don't know where he is.
Yes.
But the thing is, reforming how power operates, restructuring institutions to prioritize accountability over self-protection, changing a legal system that was literally built to favor wealth. Those are enormous undertakings that require political will that we don't currently have. Well, they certainly don't have it in the States.
No. And right now, there are people in positions of power who are engaging in behaviour that they know is wrong,
Yeah.
and they're calculating that their wealth and their connections, they're depending on that wealth and connections, those
They'd be right.
will protect them, right? And based
they'd be
on what
right.
we've seen with Epstein and everything, all of this, that's a completely rational, logical conclusion and calculation because it worked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For decades it worked. And even when it finally did collapse, most of the people involved walked away unscathed. There's a bit of gossip, a bit of rumour, they've lost a title or whatever. But that is what makes this so disturbing. It's not that he was uniquely monstrous. It's that he wasn't unique at all.
No, but this is
Right?
the thing. He wasn't unique at all. He was just more visible.
Right.
And, I think it's probably one of the things that people might find hardest to accept. Because if you acknowledge that Epstein's protection was systemic rather than exceptional, then you have to acknowledge that there are probably others like him who are still operating, still protected, and still confident that the system is going to shield them from accountability.
Right.
And we don't know who they are because the same mechanisms that protected Epstein are protecting them now.
Right. And the victims of those people, the ones we don't know about yet, they're in the same position the girls in Epstein's network were in 20 years ago, right?
Right.
Disbelieved, isolated, probably economically vulnerable, and facing a system that is not designed to protect them in any way, shape or form at all.
Well, exactly this. And until that changes, until there is a legal system that doesn't defer to power or to institutions that prioritize ethics over money, and a culture that believes victims when it's inconvenient, this is going to keep happening. This is going to keep happening.
Which means the question isn't really about Epstein anymore, is it?
No, it's not.
Right.
The question is, what are we willing to tolerate? How much protection should wealth and power buy you? At what point does the system's bias towards protecting the powerful become intolerable? And so far, you can see it with Trump and his MAGA maniacs, we haven't reached that point yet. So it continues. It continues.
Yeah. If side crest, because that's pretty bleak, but if power didn't offer protection, would people still want power?
Yeah, of course they would.
Oh, okay. I mean, it is pretty bleak, isn't it?
It is bleak, but as long as there are convicted sexual abusers like Trump in power, protecting other sexual abusers from their sexual abuse, because the thing is, he doesn't see anything wrong with it.
No.
That's the problem.
No, it's normalised.
He doesn't believe that groping women or ogling women or calling women who ask him questions that you want to answer piggy, or saying that, her face was leaking from a facelift and all the rest of it. MAGA gets so angry when you quote back his words to them. But the thing is, you have a convicted sexual offender in power, protecting other sexual abusers. Nothing is going to change.
Just let that sink in just for a minute. the person in charge of the country is a convicted sexual offender. He believes that what he did was fine.
Yep.
And people talk about ending sexual abuse, and yet there is someone who is totally driven to continue and perpetuate and protect people who are sexually abusive from being prosecuted. Just really think about that for a minute. The person at the top has a vested interest.
The person at the top is a convicted felon, and 70 million people in that country believe that he's the voice of reason and virtue. Although that's turning. That is turning. There's a lot of people now going, this isn't what we voted for. No, it may not. Well, isn't it?
Well, it was, because you knew what he was like from the first time round. Jesus.
But not even that. I mean, he didn't hide any of it. That's the thing.
Well, no. Just
when I hear these MAGA people going, "Oh, I didn't vote for this," it's like, but you literally did, because he said it out loud what he was going to do. But also, Project 2025 wasn't some sort of secret document. It was there. Cutting Medicaid and Medicare wasn't a secret. It was there.
Right. And it's
giving tax cuts to the rich wasn't a secret. It was there.
And all you have to do is watch how he responds when he gets challenged in someone saying, I disagree. Calls. No, it's not just that. I can't remember which governor it was that refused to do something around trans people that he wanted enacted.
Oh, probably Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is a thorn in his side.
Oh, I don't know if it was him. I thought it was a woman. But his response was, fine, I'm going to withdraw all funding from your state.
Yeah, but that's what he does, doesn't he?
Right? It's the minute you say, actually, I disagree with you, fine, I'll cut you off.
Yeah, I'm going to withdraw all education funding for your state.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at the abuse of power, and look at how that means that people have to comply, because all we need to comply is...
Do you know what, Helen? The House of Congress, the House of Representatives, could stop that because they have the majority. They could stop him in his tracks, but they won't.
But they don't do it.
No.
Well,
they
as
could.
I was going to
so
say.
It's not just him culpable. Every Republican
Anyone
who
who
votes
does not
for him in favour is culpable. And when he's f***ed out of power, they all should be prosecuted.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, let's leave it there before it turns into a rant.
I know we've already done why we did the live video about the Anyway, all right. Well, thank you. That was incredibly informative and enraging at the same time. So.
Right, it was both. It was both. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Bye.
On the next episode.
Well, but because the thing that makes the Illuminati interesting isn't what they did, is it? It's what people decided they must have done. But this is
it. This is exactly it. So I think there are really two stories here: the actual organization. And the mythology of the organization.
Yes.
This is the one that's vastly more interesting and more consequential as well.